Hello, and welcome to the next installment of your favorite true crime banger, Killer Bites. I'm Brandy, and today we bring you the savage and shocking story of Victoria Martens. This crime we're about to profile seemed to have obvious suspects, a confession, and witnesses. But as we will find, the deeper investigators dug, the more questions arose, and the more confounding and unclear the exact answers were. Was her mother really complicit in the alleged crimes? Who's telling the truth? Why and how could someone do this to a child? Her death would ignite the fear and outrage of the community. The initial details were so alarming that people were left wondering how something so awful could happen to a sweet young girl. Then the entire case was at risk because of false and misleading statements made by suspects and even police. The murder of 10-year-old Victoria Martens happened in 2016 and is still agreed upon as being one of the worst crimes in New Mexico State's history. The murder occurred on the night of Victoria's 10th birthday. One of the local ministers, Laura Bobbs, had said a birthday party had been planned for her. Bobbs, whose two granddaughters grew up playing with the girl, said she planned the party and they were supposed to have manicures and pedicures and eat cake. Sadly, the party would never happen. The judge in the trial said it was the most harrowing case he'd come across in 30 years on the bench. Be warned, this one is gruesome and heartbreaking. Viewer discretion is advised. Victoria Martens was born on August 23, 2006. According to classmates, she was a sweet and thoughtful young girl. Victoria lived in Albuquerque with her mom, Michelle Martens, and her little brother, Matthew. Her father is unknown. It's said Victoria was a beautiful child who did well in school, was well behaved, and was loved by neighbors in the apartment complex where she lived. She loved swimming and gymnastics. Her favorite color was purple. Victoria's brother was staying at his father's place the day of the murder and was not involved or harmed in any way. Michelle was a single mom who was working to take care of her kids. She was born in the Bronx and moved to Texas and eventually New Mexico. In 2016, Michelle was living in the Arroyo Villas apartment complex on Albuquerque's west side with her two kids, Victoria and Matthew. She had recently been hired at Smith's, a subsidiary of Kroger grocery stores. It was reported that she was excited to start this new job, and according to her family, she recently passed a test to get the job. Abuse and substance abuse had never been an issue, said a neighbor, and Michelle seemed to be a normal person. This detail is important to note for later, when we get to the details of the murder, on how quickly and horribly can affect someone. According to Michelle and her family, she loved her kids and worked hard to take care of them. But the events of August 24, 2016 would cast a shadow on Michelle and the entire city. Some backstory leading up to the crime. In March of 2016, Michelle Martens called the Children, Youth, and Families Department, CYFD, also known as CPS in other states, to report that her then-boyfriend had attempted to kiss her daughter Victoria. This man was previously accused of 2 cases of child sexual abuse. In 2012, he was accused of molesting 2 younger family members 15 years prior when he was 16 years old. In May 2013, he abducted a 4-year-old girl from an apartment complex in Albuquerque's North Valley. The girl's mother chased him down and crashed into his car. He then shoved the young girl out of his car, and she was reunited with her mother. Thankfully, no one was harmed further. But still, he was never officially charged with these accusations. The main point to remember here is that there was no additional investigation into Martin's boyfriend. It's not uncommon for child predators to use relationships with single parents to get close to child victims. Had the police investigated this matter, perhaps more could have been done to alter the course of Michelle's actions, perhaps preventing the tragic murder of Victoria. Martens apparently met this man when they worked together at a store that sold baby-related items. In her interview with police, Michelle claims that as soon as she learned that her boyfriend tried to kiss Victoria, she kicked him out of her house and broke up with him. Later, she changed her story multiple times and eventually claimed that her boyfriend had sexually assaulted Victoria. A spokesperson for Albuquerque police falsely claimed that APD had investigated the CYFD report about Martin's boyfriend attempting to kiss Victoria. The truth was that they had not. APD claimed that the spokesperson misspoke. She also claimed they didn't follow up because the report was of an attempted kiss. According to APD, this was not cause for further investigation. It became a big scandal and resulted in the discipline and eventual firing of the spokesperson. A couple of months later, in July 2016, Michelle met Fabian Gonzalez on a dating app and started a relationship with him. Martens wrote in her online profile that she was religious and looking for someone I can trust. Gonzalez said he has kids and does not like angry people, although he had recently been released from prison. A few short weeks later, he moved into Michelle's apartment with her and her kids. Gonzalez was a repeat offender. He had been arrested and prosecuted several times, and he was released and reoffending in the vicious cycle that had become the status quo in New Mexico. He had been charged with 2 cases of assault against a woman and had received probation for both cases. He also has an extensive criminal record, according to New Mexico courts. It was reported that he would use in Michelle's apartment and have people over to use with him, and to be exact. It was said that he also had ties to a local gang, TCK, which his brothers reportedly started. A few weeks after he moved in, rent-free, Gonzalez had a phone conversation with his cousin, Jessica Kelly, who was in jail. When she was released on August 15th, Gonzalez picked her up and brought her to Michelle's apartment. On August 18th, Gonzalez invited his cousin to move into Martens' apartment and allegedly charged her $50 for rent. It's assumed this was okay with Michelle, as the cousins lived there the next week before the murder occurred, with nothing to the contrary being reported by Michelle. Like Gonzalez, Kelly had an extensive record of criminal charges. In her sexual assault case, she was accused of helping an inmate sexually assault a fellow inmate. When the victim hid under the bed, Kelly grabbed her and held her so she could be assaulted. She also kept a lookout for guards. She was eventually charged with conspiracy to commit criminal sexual penetration in the 2nd degree, which is a Class 3 felony. She was not a registered sex offender at the time because conspiracy charges do not require registration as a sex offender. Now there were 2 repeat offenders in Michelle's home with her kids. Not a recipe for success. Victoria's grandparents and others who knew Michelle Martens said at the time of the killing, they were mystified over how Martens got involved with Gonzalez and Kelly. It's also believed that Gonzalez had more than one girlfriend at the time, and once his cousin was released, they went to one of the girlfriend's houses and took together. There are reports that the family of Kelly and Gonzalez had a barbecue to celebrate Kelly's release from jail on August 21st. And that Gonzalez got into an altercation with a woman at the party who claimed he had stolen from her, so she demanded that he leave. He refused, and a physical fight broke out. Gonzalez was punched and received a black eye from the event. Gonzalez continued to fight with the woman by text and even threatened her. His search history showed that he was looking for guns online the night of August 21st. August 23rd, 2016 was Victoria's 10th birthday. She spoke with her grandparents that morning and expressed how excited she was to be celebrated by her classmates. Throughout the day, several things had happened. The Albuquerque Journal detailed a timeline of events leading up to Victoria's death. This is what investigators agreed upon to be the known events that day. Victoria turned 10 years old and took the bus to school that morning. Gonzalez took Michelle to someone's place to get around 11:40 a.m. This person warned Gonzalez and Michelle that Kelly shouldn't be in the apartment and was acting weird. The man said Kelly gave him an EBT card to use and that the devil told her not to give him the PIN. Gonzalez and Michelle returned to their apartment, but then left again around 2:30 p.m. to drink and get 2:33 p.m. Michelle texted a woman telling her to knock on her apartment door, pretend to be her aunt, and make sure everything is okay. 2:36 p.m. Michelle texted her mom and asked her to pick up Victoria from the bus stop after school. But at 2:37 p.m., Michelle ignored a call from her mother. Gonzalez convinced Michelle that Kelly should pick up Victoria from the bus stop. Michelle was skeptical, but Gonzalez told her to trust Kelly and that it was safe to leave Victoria with her. According to court records, it seems that Michelle responded to her mom that she had figured it out. But it turns out that when Michelle texted Kelly to confirm whether or not she had picked up Victoria, Kelly did not respond. It appears that Kelly did not pick up Victoria, and Victoria instead went to a neighbor's apartment. Michelle heard from a neighbor by text that Victoria was trying to reach her. Michelle and Gonzalez returned home a little after 5. He gave Victoria money, though accounts vary on how much and why. He also took Victoria to the convenience store and bought her a soda, without Michelle's approval. Michelle and Gonzalez left Victoria alone with Kelly several times that evening. A jail recording of a phone call between Kelly and her sister, who was incarcerated at the time, caught Kelly saying that she was tweaking and hallucinating. Neighbors reported having a conversation with Kelly and Victoria that evening and stated that Kelly interrupted Victoria and then forcibly dragged her into the apartment. There are reports that she grabbed Victoria by the hair. Late on the night of August 23, 2016, neighbors at the Arroyo Villa apartments heard a loud disturbance at one of the units. They claimed that they heard screams coming from Martens' apartment. There are also several reports that residents had seen Jessica Kelly carrying Victoria outside at around 10 p.m. Around the same time, Martens and Gonzalez had returned to the apartment. They hung out in their car, listening to music, while Kelly was then seen bringing Victoria back upstairs. The court documents also show that Kelly claims while Martens and Gonzalez were out looking for a man arrived at the apartment looking for Gonzalez. 4:30 a.m. on August 24th, the police are called by neighbors for reportedly hearing disturbances and screams coming from Michelle's apartment. The police found Michelle and Gonzalez with facial wounds, reportedly from Kelly, who attacked them with an iron in their bedroom. When the police knocked on the apartment door, Kelly bolted it and jumped off the back balcony, injuring her ankle and still attempting to flee from police. When they caught up to her and started questioning her, she denied having anything to do with that went down in the apartment. When they finally entered the apartment, they found the horrific scene of Victoria wrapped in a blanket in the bathtub, dismembered and on fire. Investigators determined Victoria Martens died between 7:45 and 8:30 p.m. on August 23rd. When Martens and Gonzalez went back into the apartment around 10 p.m., Kelly pulled him aside and secretly told him that Victoria was murdered. The cousins agreed to work together to conceal the murder and keep Michelle away from Victoria's room. The report claims that Gonzalez kept Michelle busy by asking her to cook dinner. She then went to bed. This is where things get even more graphic. In Victoria's bedroom, Gonzalez and Kelly proceeded to dismember Victoria's body and remove several organs. They worked together to carry Victoria's body into the restroom and place her in the bathtub. Kelly then went back into Victoria's room and attempted to clean up the blood. They wrapped her in a blanket, put her in the bathtub, then set the body on fire. All 3 adults were immediately taken in for questioning. Kelly refused to speak without a lawyer present, and Gonzalez's interview lasted 9 hours, where he continued to deny having anything to do with Victoria's murder. Initially, when Michelle Martens was interviewed, she claimed that she had met men online and allowed them to sexually abuse Victoria. She claimed that she did it because she enjoyed watching. She mentioned that she had trafficked her daughter in the past as well. However, no evidence of this was ever brought to light. She said she used the website Plenty of Fish to find these men and invited a number of them over to her home. Martens also claimed that the trio had injected into Victoria to get her to calm down. She said that she believed that the were what killed Victoria. However, the Office of the Medical Examiner determined the cause of death to be manual strangulation. Compression of Victoria's neck impaired blood flow to the brain, resulting in loss of consciousness and death. Michelle also claimed that she watched as Kelly held Victoria down while Gonzalez raped her. She said that Kelly then stabbed Victoria, and then she was dismembered and set on fire. Michelle changed her story several times during interrogation. On recordings during her initial interview, it seemed as if she wasn't even aware of what she was saying, some hypothesizing that she was being fed what she thought investigators wanted to hear. Despite Michelle's confession, no intoxicating substances, including meth or alcohol, were found in Victoria's system. Sadly though, HPV, a sexually transmitted disease, was, implying that she had been sexually assaulted in her past. Gonzalez also made claims during his interview, one of which was that he raped Victoria after she was dead. Martens also claimed that Gonzalez was abusing Victoria the entire month he was living with them. Police confiscated a camcorder, iPod, as well as several mini discs from Martens' apartment, on which no incriminating evidence was reported. Initially, the three suspects were charged with kidnapping, child abuse resulting in death, tampering with evidence, conspiracy, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Kelly and Gonzalez were charged with criminal sexual penetration of a minor. Bail was set for Michelle and Gonzalez at $1 million each at their first court appearance. The community was distraught over the news. Neighbors and friends built a makeshift memorial under a tree near the apartment complex, adorning it with stuffed animals and candles. In the evening, dozens gathered for a candlelight vigil, and the shrine grew. In March 2017, a new investigation was launched and hundreds of interviews were conducted. In May 2017, the district attorney and lawyers filed a request for the trio to have separate trials. Legal expert John Day said the trials needed to be separated so all three defendants could get a fair trial. The Supreme Court ruled if more than one person is charged with the same crime, they're entitled to separate trials. In June 2018, Bernalillo County District Attorney Raul Torres announced that rape and murder charges had been dropped against Michelle Martens and Fabian Gonzalez in light of new evidence. It had become clear that some of the initial details of the case were fabricated by Michelle. The DA announced at a press briefing that despite Martens and Gonzalez's confessions, cell phone data showed that neither Martens nor Gonzalez were present in the apartment when Victoria was murdered. Kelly informed police as part of her plea deal that there was an unknown man who entered the apartment and murdered Victoria. This was backed up by DNA from an unknown male being found on Victoria's body. In June of 2018, Michelle accepted a plea bargain to one count of child abuse, resulting in death. In 2022, Michelle Martens was sentenced to 12 years in prison for her role in the strangulation and dismemberment of her 10-year-old daughter, Victoria Martens, marking the last of three co-defendants put behind bars in the girl's 2016 death. Martens, 41 at the time, had served more than 6 years at the Metropolitan Detention Center and was to receive credit for 2,270 days of pre-sentence confinement towards her 12-year prison sentence. She also is eligible to receive good time credit that could cut her remaining sentence to just 3 years. Martens appeared to show little emotion during the ruling and chose not to speak at her sentencing hearing, which she attended remotely from jail. The sentencing appeared to close the book on one of the most horrific child abuse cases in Albuquerque's history. Gory details of Victoria's death and mutilation shocked the public and led to a years-long investigation that police called among the most complex they could recall. Although to this day, it is still unclear who actually killed Victoria. The case remains open, and authorities are looking for an unidentified man based on DNA evidence. In 2022, Fabian Gonzalez was sentenced to 37.5 years in prison after jurors found him guilty of child abuse resulting in death, 7 counts of tampering with evidence, and conspiracy for his role in Victoria's killing. Unlike Martens and Kelly, he did not take a plea deal, as he claimed the DNA evidence would prove his innocence. It's interesting to note that in 2019, after the initial murder and rape charges were dropped, he was released from prison and held under house arrest since he didn't want to take a plea deal, instead awaiting trial. So sad that reckless child abuse charges aren't enough of a crime to keep one detained. The American justice system. The judge, Cindy Leos, for Michelle's sentencing stated that she was easily manipulated by Gonzalez and was unable to see what he was up to and the grave risk that was posed to her, Leos said. A psychological profile showed Michelle Martens had personality traits like people-pleasing and a lower than average IQ that perhaps made her susceptible to false confessions. During discussions with an outside medical expert that interviewed Martens, that doctor determined Martens made numerous false confessions in the case. Said Leos, Victoria Martens is gone because of some of the decisions Miss Martens made in allowing Fabian Gonzalez into her life and letting him take control, even though I don't think she fully recognized just how quickly this was going to go bad. Investigators learned from cell phone records that Martens and Gonzalez were not in the apartment at the time Victoria was killed, a fact acknowledged by Deputy District Attorney Greer Staley at Martens' sentencing hearing. We know through investigation that Miss Martens was not even home when the homicide of her daughter happened, Staley said. We know that she did not tamper with her daughter's body or participate in the cleanup that her two co-defendants participated in. Martens' attorney, Gary Mitchell, described his client as a hard worker and model inmate at MDC who continues to grieve for the loss of her daughter. Mitchell said that his client has been participating in multiple programs while in custody and would be a good candidate for community rehabilitation. Despite teasing by other inmates, her defense team said Michelle has remained calm, is doing the work needed as part of her therapy, and has learned coping skills. Leos ordered that Martens continue with treatment once she is released and on supervised probation. She always wanted to be accepted, particularly by a man, Mitchell said, and that creates massive problems and created problems in this case. Kelly, 37 at the time, pleaded no contest in 2019 to 6 felony charges, including reckless child abuse resulting in death and other charges in Victoria's death. She was sentenced in April 2019 to 44 years in prison. Kelly told police that a well-dressed Hispanic man entered the apartment and killed Victoria because Gonzalez had threatened people at that cookout several days earlier. According to Kelly, he got into the apartment, killed Victoria, told her to clean up the crime scene or else, and left. Prosecutors indicted John Doe in 2018 for first-degree murder, but his identity still remains unknown. In light of Victoria's death and the in-depth investigations surrounding it, there were internal investigations into the Albuquerque Police Department. On August 4th, 2017, the Albuquerque Journal reported that an investigation by the Civilian Police Oversight Agency, CPOA, found that a spokesperson from the Albuquerque Police Department did lie to the newspaper about the police department's response to a CYFD referral concerning Victoria Martens prior to her death. In December 2016, a sergeant and a commander of the Crimes Against Children Unit told police command staff, including Chief of Police Gordon Eden and a department spokesman officer, that the Albuquerque police had received referrals from the CYFD about Martens, but did not investigate. In late January 2017, 2 police spokespersons told the Albuquerque Journal that officers did investigate the referrals and stated that interviews with Victoria Martens and her mother had been conducted. However, this was revealed by the investigation to be false. In July 2017, the CPOA investigation discovered that one of the police spokespersons held correct information about the case, but fabricated details in the January statements given to the Albuquerque Journal. Albuquerque's Citizen Police Oversight Agency voted for the officer, since removed from spokesperson duties, to be suspended for 2 weeks. However, Eden modified this to a 1-day suspension, arguing that there was no evidence the officer intentionally lied. Due to the disagreement, the case will next be reviewed by an independent monitor overseeing the Albuquerque Police Department's reform. In August 2017, Martens' maternal grandparents filed a wrongful death lawsuit in the 2nd District Court against the city of Albuquerque and several named police officers. The lawsuit alleged that their failure to investigate a report that one of Michelle Martens' boyfriends tried to kiss Victoria was negligence that led to her murder, and that Albuquerque had in effect policies, practices, and customs that condoned and fostered the unlawful conduct of the Albuquerque Police Department, individual defendants, and were a direct and proximate cause of Martens' death. However, it was dismissed, and as of today's reporting, nothing has come of it. Victoria's story is one of the worst child abuse cases in New Mexico history. This senseless death was absolutely avoidable and should have never happened. Due to the history of the state's lack of assistance or follow-up from those earlier calls and reports of abuse to the Children, Youth, and Families Department, Victoria is thought to be one of the countless children that the state of New Mexico had forgotten. The repercussions of this case belie the sad truths of our flawed systems and how horribly those affect the most vulnerable. For me, so many questions remain. How is the supposed killer still at large? And why would Kelly, if she was the only one there with this suspect, not aid in his arrest, bringing him to justice? How was it proven that Kelly herself did not kill Victoria? Have things changed in New Mexico's CYFD so that all potential cries for help are heard and investigated? We can only hope Victoria's in a better place. For Killer Bites, I'm Brandy. Until next time, be safe out there.